I'm serious. And I'm Ray of Sunshine. And I'm delighted that you're here with me today. I've talked about doing something different to discover something different in this new world energy. And if you haven't heard me talk about that, it's because you haven't seen any of my other videos because I talk about it on a lot of them. The videos 1 through 6, same guy. It's Ray of Sunshine. It's a little bit of a different format, a little bit offbeat, and it's there for you to discover how you deal with different. So I encourage you to check that out, and I encourage you to send my video, and at the end of this video, send it to some character that it would be out of character for you to send it to. Number one, so you can discover something different about you. But number two, equally as important, so they can discover something different about them. Because we're all in this together. So, you might be wondering, well, what are they going to think? Why would they think of me? What do they think of me about sending them this video? And what I think they'll think of you is that you're very good at spotting a jackpot when you see one. And thank you for sharing that with me. So in some of the, like in that first video, I believe I'm in this section of my sanctuary here, and you'll get a tour of my sanctuary. Now it's free. When I'm famous, I'll be charging. Uh, but yeah, I talk about some of these things that are hanging around on my wall, on my counters, and stuff like that. These are all things that are meaningful to me, and I talk about some of the people that are associated with them, and some of the life lessons that I've stumbled across. So that's some of the things that you'll be discovering over there. And today I want to start by talking about, well, my new format, first of all, which is the fortune cookie format. And I have this gong bowl that I've accumulated. I made up a whole bunch of these fortune cookie slips, and these are to introduce various topics because, as you may know, as if you saw my birthday video, and number 3, I believe, is party time. I talk about I'm a Gemini. I'm not happy with just one. I have to have more than one. So I'm going to have at least 2 themes. So I'll be telling you about my first theme that I've decided on for today, and we're going to pick one of these if we need another theme to carry through for the rest of the program. I try to keep my programs about a half hour or less so that I'm not taking up all of your time. But there'll be an important message here and important messages over there too. So check those out. We probably will be getting to a fortune cookie slip, but I want to talk about today. I want to talk about what I did different yesterday, just to give you an idea of what's going on for me. So I decided I was out kayaking, and it was a spectacular day. It was in the middle of the afternoon, which this time of year I don't often do because it's just too hot out there. But it was mild. It was mid 70s. It was a nice breeze, and I was out there alone, except for one of the guy who was on his kayak fishing off in the distance. Somebody that I never saw there before. So I'm paddling around, kind of circling around, and thinking, I think my different for today is going to be going over there to introduce myself to this guy because that's different for me. That's not something that I would normally do. Just go up to somebody and say, especially there in the middle of the lake, just to introduce myself. So I'm paddling around a little bit, and of course I'm thinking, what's he gonna think? Do it. I'm just gonna make a nosedive for it, right? So I stop paddling over, and I'm thinking, I wonder what he's thinking. But he wasn't thinking anything because he was in another world somewhere. He didn't even know I was approaching. So when I said hi, he jumped and he practically fell off his kayak. And then, but when he recovered, a young guy in his 20s, and it turns out he's my neighbor. He lives 2 streets down from me. We're about 15 minutes away from that place. And I said, "Where do you live?" He said, "Oh, about 15 minutes from here." I said, "Oh, me too. We're neighbors." So when he recovered from that shock, I explained to him. I said, I'm doing something different every day, and I chose you for today's different, and that's what I'm doing here, just to introduce myself, just to say hi. He said, "Oh, that's cool." And I don't know why I told him this. I said, and so I have 2 goals for today, and I already accomplished my first one. He said, what's that? I said, well, I decided to let go of worry. Why I told him this, I don't know, but maybe it was something he needed to hear. I decided to let go of worry, and he said, oh, why is that? Do you worry a lot? And I said, no, actually, I don't worry a lot. Long time ago, I figured out that worry is counterproductive. It doesn't really serve me. And I thought I'd let it go, but I said it came up for me, and I'm realizing that I was holding on to a little bit of worry about the future. Instead of just, allowing the future to unfold and not putting any energy into worrying about it. And he said, yeah, I'm kind of the same way. And I think that's a good idea. I'm going to let it go. And I didn't tell him this part of the story, but the way that came up for me was yesterday morning. I'm sitting on my porch having my tea, and the squirrels are running around outside my porch all over the place having fun. And I like that. If you've seen my other videos, you'll see that I talk about fun is fun, and you can't have too much fun, and there's no such thing as too much happy. So I'm all in for that sort of thing. But there's also something serious about that. I'm thinking, oh, there's a message here for me from Squirrel. And I have my medicine cards handy, and I've read that message dozens and dozens of times. I know the message of Squirrel. It's about gathering and preparing for the future primarily. But I said, you know what? There's got to be another message there for me, so I'm going to go read it. And sure enough, I read the message, the Squirrel message, and it talks about gathering, and it talks about being prepared for the future, and it talks about letting go what no longer serves us, to make space for the changes, for the different that's coming up. And so I knew all of that part of it. Then it talked about letting go of worry, worrying about the future. The future is going to unfold. The future is going to fall into place. There's no point. Why put any worry into it? So I decided I was going to let it go, and I told this to Joe. I'm letting it go, and he agreed. He's going to let it go. Then he says to me, "Can I tell you something?" And I said, "Oh boy, here it comes." And I kind of expected that. I talk about that on one of those 1 through 6 videos. I think numbers 1 through 6, and there'll be a box on the side of my head. I don't know which one it'll be. There'll be one for the pilot video, and if you haven't seen that, you'll get to be introduced to me and some of the occurrences in my life that pretty much led me to doing this video right now, actually. And you'll learn a lot about you. So anyway, Joe says, "Can I tell you something?" And I was prepared for it. I don't mind. I'm not crazy about small talk. Sometimes it's kind of required to lead up to the meat and potatoes. I don't mind just diving right into the meat and potatoes, and that happens a lot. And that's what was happening here. And I knew it was going to be heavy meat and potatoes. The way that he came up with it, I recognize the look on his face about it, because I've had many people come up to me with that look on their face. A lot of them. And this is what I thought it was going to be. Somebody will say, "Ray, can I tell you something?" "Yeah, I like men." Wow, so do I. And the difference is I'm happy about it, you're not, and let's talk about it. And that happens a lot. But this was not Joe's message. He says to me, "I live with other people. We share a place, and there's 4 of us. And one of the guys got a girlfriend. And they fell in love, and they plan on getting married." I said, don't tell me he moved into the apartment. She moved in with him, right?" He said, "Yes, she did." He said, "But," he said, "they came up to us immediately, and they said, we know this isn't cool, and we're going to be moving out. We're going to find a place." But he said before they had the chance to move on Saturday, she killed herself in the house. I said, "Wow." He said, "Yeah, and I'm not used to that. I don't really know a lot of people that have died." He said, "And I'm Christian, and I kind of know, I know that, I know that part of it, and I didn't know exactly what it meant, but I had an idea of that part of it, that you cross over to the other side and stuff like that." But he said, I'm afraid of it, and it's been on my mind. Recently, Uh, I had a friend who came over who was telling me, I said, "Hey, Frank, how's it going? What's new?" Well, and right into the meat and potatoes, he said, "Oh, well, I started a new job." Yeah, what are you doing? So well, I'm doing the same thing. He's been working on bridges all of his life. He's one of those people on the scaffolding, and they do whatever they do to take care of the bridges. But he started on a new project, a big bridge. Like the Golden Gate Bridge, but not that big. And it's over here on the East Coast, and but it's big. It's one of those bridges where you start at one end and you work all the way over to the other end, and then you work your way back, and then and start over again. One of those kind of deals. So he said, yeah. So I started on Monday, and at lunchtime, I come up off the scaffolding, and this car pulls over. The door swings open. The car is left running, and somebody goes running out over to the railing and jumps. And he said there's big commotion, and I'm in shock, and I couldn't even have my lunch, and so we finally get back to work. We no sooner get back to work, and there's this other guy up the way smoking a cigarette, and I'm looking at him. He throws the cigarette over the side, and climbs up the railing and jumps. Two the same day, his first day of work, and he said, that's all that's been in my mind day and night. It keeps me awake, and I'm really upset about it. And we talked about it some more, not quite as in depth as what Joe and I talked about. So I'm going to get back to the Joe conversation. And so I said, yeah. So what is it you're afraid of? He said, well, I'm not familiar with it. I'm scared. I don't know what it's all about. I said, Joe, I can tell you. I said I've had a little bit of experience with that, and I can tell you, because I have a little bit of a different perspective because of these experiences. If you want to hear it, and he said, yeah. I said, well, my best friend used to talk to the dead. And so, and now, he's looking up at me like this to see if I have two heads or what's really going on with me, talking to the dead. But, this was something that I was exposed to a long time. And I have a lot of those little stories. They were all in those 1 through 6 videos, all kinds of stories about me and Sid and all our adventures and talking to people. And so I said, I was exposed to this for a long time, and I was nervous about it at first. I didn't really understand it. In fact, my mother, I talked about this on one of those videos too, when my mother passed away when I was 20 years old, and I was wearing a white flower on my lapel. And that was sacrilegious back then, death and dying, and that was dark and dreary, and there's nothing to celebrate about it. But I felt there was, and in fact, one of my mother's best friends came up to me to say, "Do you really think that's appropriate to be wearing a white flower on a solemn occasion such as this?" And I said, "Yeah, well, yeah, I do." I said, "I know it's a sad event, but I still think there's something to celebrate." And I didn't really understand the impact of that. I didn't really understand the full meaning of that, but I knew deep down that there was something there for me to celebrate, and I've come to understand and learn more about that over the course of the years. And a lot of that had to do with my experiences with Sid and going around and him talking to dead people. So anyway, I told Joe that the reason I'm more comfortable with it now, and I have a different understanding, is because of these experiences with my friend Sid, who used to talk to the dead. And I said, and the number one message that he had for just about everybody that we came in contact with was, "I'm at peace. I'm happy. You don't need to worry about me." I said, so there's something going on over there that I feel good about knowing. And I said, I've learned this over the course of the years. That it's not something to be afraid of, like we've always thought it was. So we weren't able to get in too much of a conversation. I think I kind of blew his mind a little bit, but I opened the door, and that's what happened. That's how it happened for me in my life too. When I first started being exposed to that concept, I remember back. I was young. I must have been in my. I don't remember what age I was, but I had ghosts in my house, and all these strange things were happening, and I have like a clock that would be switched time, and it's not like the battery died or anything. It's just it would be switched time one time, and then the clock would be turned upside down, and then I'd have things like things falling off the wall or plants being moved. I'd leave for the day, and I'd come back, and the plant would be in it, different and stuff like that, and so it made me nervous. I got scared about it. And I just so happened to run into a woman who I was working with, and I didn't even know this about her. But I'm telling her the story one day. She says, "Oh, my husband and I are Ghostbusters. You're Ghostbusters? Sure, yeah, yeah. We don't go around talking about it with people, but when it comes up, I'm available if you want me to come over." And that was one of my first experiences with spirits on the other side, and they came over, and it turned out I had a couple of spirits in my house because they had to come over twice. And the first time was this guy who I was living in sort of a dilapidated part of town, was in the process of being rebuilt, and I was just renovating this home that I had bought. And but prior to that, the home had been empty for a long time, and she said, "Yeah, this was a guy that hung around the neighborhood, a gang leader, and he used to hang around inside of this house. And he had an untimely death, a shooting, and he got killed. And he said, and this is so he returned. This is where he is. He's stuck on the other side, and we helped him to move on." So that was one of my first exposures, and I had another incident in that same house too. But I've had quite a lot of experience with that sort of thing. So that was my adventures today for doing something different. Yesterday for doing something different, and I'm going to. I don't. Did I tell you about these slips? These slips. I made these up because, and I talk about it in one of my other videos. I have all of these ideas that come into my head, and I keep track of them by telling my phone. And so in Google Docs, I had this whole big long list of topics, which are these topics right here, and I put them on little slips to have to follow along with different ideas of topics that I want to discuss. So I'm going to pick one of these topics for today, and this is the baloney. So I have some stuff in here, and it's serious stuff. This one here is a little bit on the lighter side, and I have a few items in there like that, which are just fun things because you can't have too much fun, and there's no such thing as too much happy. And the baloney is a fun one. So the baloney is a song that my dad used to sing. And we'd have gatherings, outings, campfires, stuff like that. Pretty large groups of people. Sometimes it'd be like, shh, 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 shh. Pops is going to do the baloney. Everybody's all excited. Going to do the baloney song. And my father always had fun with that, and he'd say yes, but I have to do something else first. But I will get to it, and it did this whole big process of dragging it on but he'd always eventually get to the baloney song. So anyway, that's where I learned the baloney song, and I'll share that with you. It's a lot of fun. But I want to talk about my dad for a moment because I was thinking about him when I was writing out that baloney slip, and I think he had aspirations for different things in his life that he didn't do, and he had taken over a family business in his younger days, and I slipped into that routine always also. But I always knew there were other things that he had on his heart that were dreams that he never followed. And not that he wasn't good at what he did, not that he didn't like what he did. I don't think it served the purpose and he was successful with it. But there were things in his heart that he was never able to express. And I think there was a little bit of envy because I ended up chasing some of those dreams, and acting was one of them. So you could always tell when he was, especially when doing something like the baloney song. He was in his element, he was in his glory, being in front of people, and acting like that. And another thing, and I talk about this on some of those videos. I've been cooking for a long time. I had a catering business, a restaurant. I cooked for years and years and years with under lots of different conditions and situations, but it was a way of expressing myself. And I knew that my dad liked that too, and he used to do a lot of the cooking. Sundays was his day to cook until I moved my pushed my way in and took over. But he loved cooking, but he never really did with it. He kind of like, I think, kind of felt stuck. But the thing about the relationship with me and my dad, we had some rough times, and we came to terms with a lot of that. But I finally came to, I realized that everything that he did, even though I didn't interpret it that way, and it wasn't my perception at the time, he did out of love. And so I am going to do the baloney song in honor of my dad. And let's see. Well, I'm at about the 20-minute mark. I won't have time to do the baloney song today because it's a little bit extensive. So you'll have to come back tomorrow. Join me tomorrow for the baloney song. And until then, and in the meanwhile, it's playtime. Discover you.